Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Eat. Today's episode comes from my own personal experience, and I'd imagine that this will resonate with at least one of you, which I'm so grateful for because obviously in those moments it felt very frustrating, years and years and years going through this cycle, the same pattern. But now in retrospect, I realize that this can bring a lot of value to individuals who might be experiencing it right now in real time, especially because it is now the spring and we are heading towards warmer weather. And this is exactly about the time where I started to feel a certain type of way. And this happened year after year after year. Lots of anxiety, lots of stress. So this episode is really meant to offer you my personal experience and strategies on how to be more intentional, more healthful, more sustainable in achieving what it is that you want to achieve in order to feel good in mind and body in the warmer months. Because the issue that I had was I was never able to actually achieve what I set out to do. I simply put myself through misery. I put myself through stress, through intensive exercise, lots of cardio, using my fitness pal, all of the things. And throughout all of that, I was never actually productive. So you wonder, why am I trying to do the same exact thing year after year, thinking something's going to change? And unfortunately, it did not ever change, right? Until I started to address it a different way. So in order to best support you, if you're navigating this, I hope that you will take away value from this episode. But not only that, I'm also hosting a free masterclass on Tuesday, April 9th at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, where I am going to be exploring how to better navigate this anxiety and stress of March and April's through your habits and routines around nutrition and blood sugar, sleep hygiene and sleep routines, building sustainability in your exercise routine, detoxing from stress, establishing an effective self-care routine, and then also learning about toxins and how to support our detox pathways, making non-toxic swaps, because in celebration of spring cleaning that only felt relevant, and we also know that there's tremendous impact that this can have on our health. The masterclass will be about 60 to 90 minutes long. And like I said, we're going to be exploring all of the topics I just listed, and then also understanding the foundation to building a habit, building routines. And this formula can be implemented into all of these areas. So it's really about understanding the basics and then being able to apply it to your own circumstances. That's where you'll be most effective. And it's really meant for anyone who's lost touch with their New Year's resolutions. You're feeling imbalanced, you're feeling inflamed, you're feeling symptomatic, you're just feeling subpar, and you really want to realign in order to feel better come the summer months. I personally believe that this is the most effective way, and this is how I operate, in order to create sustainability in these habits, as opposed to I'm going to hit it hard for 6 weeks and hope for the best and likely do damage to your metabolism, to your relationship with movement, to your relationship with food, and ultimately your relationship with yourself. If you can attend live, all good. Replays will be sent to anyone who registers, so be sure to register. You can get a replay. I'm also going to be announcing a brand new spring discount on coaching for anyone who might be interested. So that will be announced at the end of the workshop, and I will put the details in the show notes so you can register. I'm really looking forward to this. I personally spent so many spring months feeling really frustrated and uncomfortable in my skin. And so if I can help anyone combat that, address that, realign, reignite their relationship with their wellness, then that is my goal, right? That is what I'm setting out to do. So I hope to see you there. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But let's dive into today's episode. I welcome you to my table and let's eat. Welcome to Let's Eat. I'm your host, Emily, holistic health coach and self-proclaimed wellness enthusiast, here to meet you at the intersection of physical and mental health, the exact location where optimal wellness lies. This podcast is meant to explore all areas of mind and body wellness, designed to offer you the integrative knowledge, behavioral strategies, and mindset shifts necessary to uplevel your health and feel better today. We'll explore nutrition, sleep, movement, self-care and stress management, habits and routines, gut health, mental health, and more. I am so happy that you're here. Welcome to the table. Let's eat. Okay, so let's dive into this topic. Now, I have nothing in front of me to guide me here. I'm really just going to speak from my experience, speak from how I recall these memories, and really give you the ins and outs of what took place and what happened and where I am now. So this idea of Marches and Aprils, I wrote a caption, I don't even remember, maybe a couple years ago on Instagram regarding Marches and Aprils. And I specifically talk about how this time of year in years past, now I'm talking as early as high school into my late teens, early 20s, that I would always become overcome with stress and anxiety and, oh no, right? To put it plainly, summer is here, right? In New Jersey, we always have like a day or two in March and maybe even February too. Nowadays, it's kind of crazy, where it's like a 60, 70 degree day and you are just hit with, all right, it's happening. It's time, right? The summer is near and we get all excited. We get all hyped up. Now, that's not to say that that doesn't always, mean that there's not going to be another snowstorm. That does happen. Okay. We've had our snowstorms come in March and April. And that's just the beauty of the weather here in the Northeast. However, these days would come and it would be so exciting, but also so filled with dread because I had just spent probably, 4, 5, 6 months in a turbulent relationship with movement, probably indulging more than I would during maybe the summer months. Right? I don't really recall exactly. I think about the holidays, lots of wine, lots of eating. My mom's during the holidays, there's just constantly food available, and we're just enjoying. And I want to also preface all this by saying that's okay, right? It's okay to enjoy the holidays. It's okay to have the wine, not so much anymore for me, but it's okay to have the wine. It's okay to have the cheese and crackers and all of the delicious foods that come with the holiday season. Okay. But we can find ourselves in this space of, starting from maybe even Halloween to Thanksgiving, my birthday's in there, then to Christmas, New Year's, and then come January, February, at least in New Jersey, the weather is just miserable. It's cold, it's dark. You kind of just want to cozy up and you're really not giving much thought to, what should I be eating, right? You're not giving much thought to, is this the most healthful option? You really gravitate towards those comfort foods. Now, I want to also say I'm generalizing this. You could feel differently. Your situation could maybe look similarly, look a little bit differently, be spot on. But this was just for me, right? Like I'm thinking about what it looked like for me. There was just little consideration as it relates to food and exercise. Now, the one small caveat there is New Year's resolutions, right? Where January 1st would come and I was falling into that same pool of people who would, really commit to these overextended goals, unrealistic, unsustainable, out of reach goals as it relates to movement, as it relates to food, and I would quit, right? I think that is to be expected for a large percentage of the population who invest in New Year's resolutions that have to do with health and wellness. I think that's just, it's notorious. It's almost to the point of why even bother unless you're going about it in a more strategic way because of how commonly they are to fail. And this was me. I think I had a lot of all or nothing thinking. I set the bar too high. I expected too much from myself. And I think January 17th is the day that most people quit their New Year's resolutions. And I would probably say I was probably a few days prior to that, maybe even, a week and a half, 2 weeks into the new year. And that's a whole nother story, okay? I do now offer something called Resolution Rescue. This year is my first year doing it, and I'm definitely going to offer it this coming year too, just as a means of helping to bridge that gap between January 1st and the day that we all decide to quit, right? So that you can find more sustainability and sustain these changes for longer. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're only in April. We, have some time. I'll talk more about that come November, December. But this was kind of how the trajectory would unfold. And that's not to say that I wasn't still moving, right? I think I look back and, probably from 16, 17, when I first started exercising to any degree, because I never did sports, I was not active. I would voluntarily just get a 0 for my gym class because I just didn't feel like changing. I just didn't want to put on the gym clothes. I didn't want to do anything active. So I just would take a 0 because I didn't want to do it. And so probably around 16, 17, that was when I started to really exercise. Was I educated? No. Did I know what I was doing? No. Was I fixated on a lot of cardio? Yes. Okay. And this would be 16, 17, all through my probably early 20s, where a lot of my focus was just on cardio, elliptical, running. I would spend maybe, 5 minutes, 10 minutes doing some sort of core circuit, maybe some crunches here and there. And then I'd say, all right, I'm done. I'm out. Because especially given the fact that I had spent all of my energy, I expended all of my energy 45 to 60 minutes on a treadmill or on an elliptical, of course I'm not going to want to go and do an ab circuit, right? That's like, girl, you just wasted all your energy on the elliptical. You're done. You're out, right? Especially because I probably wasn't properly fueling, right? There's so many factors that play in here, okay? So come to March and April, there would be this dread. There's this onset of this dread, this anxiety. And even, one of my best friends and I, actually a couple of my best friends and I over the course of the year, we'd set these goals. We'd say, okay, it's March, like, let's do it. We did cleanses together, my two best friends and I. We did this one program, I forgot what it's called, and I don't want to misname it. So I forgot what it's called. But it was this really intensive cleanse where you'd eat a certain amount of this and cut out this and track everything and move your body this way and do this and do, very diet culture-esque, okay? Another example, one of my best friends and I would compare ourselves to Victoria's Secret models, and we'd post pictures of ourselves next to the Victoria's Secret model that we would want to look like, which obviously we know, especially now with Victoria's Secret angels and models and so forth, and how, it's kind of outdated. 10 years ago, the Victoria's Secret fashion show was all the rage, but now we're looking more at how unrealistic it is and how, body positivity, whatever, right? So I was Candace Swanpole. I love Candace Swanpole. I think she's the most beautiful, beautiful Victoria's Secret angel. And my other best friend, I forget who she chose, maybe Adriana Lima, I forget. But we would post pictures of ourselves, but we would put pictures of ourselves next to these models as motivation. Okay? Now, if that's not toxic, and if that's not, damaging to my mental health, I don't know what is. Who am I to think I'm going to look like this model? Okay? Who am I to think that I am going to achieve this appearance in a matter of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, right? From March to May or March to June or whatever it was, when genetically speaking, biologically speaking, all of the things, right, are so different. Okay, so if that doesn't give you a clear picture, I don't think I've ever shared this before. If that doesn't give you a clear picture of the issue right here, or what I was doing wrong, I don't know what else I could do for you. Okay, but it was a lot of discomfort in my skin and just really feeling like I don't want to have to get to the summer months. I don't want to have to feel that way. I don't want to have to feel uncomfortable in my skin and insecure and so forth. So this would cue the onset of my fitness pal, calorie counting, getting to the gym, doing lots of cardio, and really pushing it hard. And the episode title is Why Your Spring Diet Will Not Get Your Summer Body, is meant to really exemplify how all of these efforts that we're putting in, these dire, stressful, toxic efforts that we're trying so desperately, so desperately to achieve a certain outcome, to look a certain way, to look like Candace Swampole in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks is, bottom line, futile. It is, bottom line, useless. And I would even go as far as to say it's damaging. Now, I'm speaking from personal experience here, okay? So I always want to be sure that that is made clear, that I'm speaking from my own experience, and I'm not trying to generalize. I'm not trying to say that this is exactly what's happening to you, but it could be. This could resonate with you. And if it does, I'm grateful for that, because hopefully this episode can bring you some value. Now, I also want to be sure I offer a trigger warning here, not to say I'm going to get into too much of, disordered eating disorder discussion, but for someone who might be sensitive to this type of topic, I just want to put it out there that I'm going to be exploring a little bit more about what I was doing, and, this could be triggering for some. So I just want to be sure I mention that. So I will also say, I was not happy during this time. This was miserable for me to have to commit so hard to counting my calories, to what I was eating, to avoiding certain foods, to being really restrictive, and then to also force myself to exercise as intensely as I was. And I wasn't really following any kind of plan. I simply was forcing myself to do a lot of cardio. I did BBG, which is by Kayla Itsines, not sure how to pronounce her last name. And that was just a lot of stress on my body. Let me tell you, my goodness, I shared about this, I think, in my first episodes. I swear to God, I think about jump lunges right now. I think about jump squats right now, and my muscles in my legs just scream at me. Like, they are literally screaming just at the thought of doing something like that because of how intensive it was. It was so much stress on my body. And what we know, okay, when we think about stress, which I like to talk about stress, what we know about stress is if we're putting ourselves in the space of stress, whether it's through some sort of restrictive, intensive diet, right? Physically, that's stressful if we're starving ourselves in a certain way, or mentally, right? The toxicity that can come from that when we're hyper fixating on what we can eat, what we can't eat. Some might call that orthorexia, or the stress of physically enduring these intensive workouts over and over again. All of that is stress. All of that is stress on the body and stress on your mind. You might not want to call it that. You might say, no way, that's not stress. That's the grind. That's hustle, right? That's getting my summer body, whatever you want to call it, right? No, it is not. It is stress. It is stressful. It is harmful. It is damaging. It can promote injury. It is toxic. That is what it is. And now, don't get me wrong. I am all for hard work. I am all for discipline. I am all for, becoming your healthiest self and committing to habits and committing to routines. If you know me at all, I am the most goal-oriented, ambitious person that there is. Okay? That is the truth. But what it boils down to is we are mistaking this stress and this toxicity for hard work, for getting that summer body, for, trying to look a certain way or feel a certain way. And what it really boils down to, and I'm sorry to have to tell you this, is it is so incredibly stressful. And that is part of the reason why we are not successful when we try to embark on our journeys in this way. And not only is it stressful, it's unsustainable, it is likely to promote injury. That's a whole different ballgame. But at the end of the day, we have this mentality that what we're doing is good. What we're doing is productive. What we're doing is going to generate the results that we want. And don't get me wrong, hard work and discipline and putting in the effort, which we all should be doing as it relates to our health, that can generate success. That can allow us to feel good. But the way that I was going about it, and the way that I'm sure some of you have gone about it, was not going to get the results that I wanted. And I learned that. I saw that. I experienced that. Because come May, June, I still was not where I wanted to be. I was burned out, so I was really just not doing any of it anymore. I was binging, not in a disordered eating way, but in a I've restricted, so now I'm just going to eat what I want because I haven't allowed myself to have this for X amount of weeks. And I had to find myself back at square one, still feeling the same way, feeling burnt out physically, emotionally. And now it's June and I have to put on the shorts, put on the bathing suit, and I'm still not happy. And I think that this cycle is so relevant. It is so incredibly common. And I'm so grateful to be able to speak out about it because of the fact that this was very much me. This was very much my experience. This was very much my reality. And I could not see anything but this. I really did not know anything outside of this. I did not know that it was possible to go about it in a different way. I thought that this was the way to do it. I thought, okay, this is what you have to do. You have to work hard. You have to push your body. No days off. No rest days. You can't have a rest day. It's all about cardio. It's all about restriction and counting how many freaking almonds I'm having, right? All of that is what I need to do in order to be successful. And at the end of the day, look where it got me. Very toxic, very stressful, very harmful. And I say that this was damaging to the relationship that I have with food and the relationship that I have with exercise. But I think above all, it was damaging to the relationship that I have with myself. And that I think is the most important relationship that we can have, right? The relationship that we have with ourselves. Because if I'm spending years and years and years putting myself through this, putting myself through this stress, this toxicity, this restriction, and every single year I'm still not feeling good, what does that say about me? What does that say about my capability? How does that make me feel about myself? And so forth, right? You can imagine that there's so much damage that can come just as it relates to how we see ourselves, our self-esteem, our self-confidence, our self-competence as well, self-competency, self-competence. What is the word there? Self-competence, you know what I'm trying to say. So when you really think about that and how damaging that is, not only in the immediate term, but then also for the long term, you really realize what kind of impact this is having on me, on my health, and more. And I want to say that this is one of the biggest things that I see with clients, because clients will come to me and say, I've tried it all, I've done it all. And they've done 99 different types of approaches, or they've tried the same approach 99 different times, and I'm now their 100th time. And they're trying to go into this with the expectation that this 100th time is going to be different. And that's not to say that it can't be, right? I don't want to say that in all cases and all scenarios that it can't be different. However, I will say that if you're not aware of this pattern, if you're not aware of what it is that you're doing to yourself, to the way you see yourself, your self-esteem, your self-efficacy, all of that, and addressing your mindset along the way, you are never going to succeed. And that was a big part of what I had to do when I was going through these Marches and Aprils, year after year after year. And it got to the point where it had to be something that I said, wait a second. Let me look at my track record here, because I'm not really doing much here. I'm not being successful. I don't feel good. None of this stress, this anxiety, this worry is serving me. If anything, it's making matters worse for me. And I have to decide to do something different. I have to decide to make a change. I have to decide to approach this in a different way in order to be more effective. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So the first rule of thumb here is it's really important that we address our mindset. Now, who's surprised that I said that? we need to be willing to look at our mindset before moving into any change process. Because inevitably, our thoughts drive our actions. Our thoughts create our reality. And if our mindset is not in alignment with the behavioral change that we're looking to make, we're not going to be successful. If our thoughts continue to tell us, you're not going to be able to do this, this is too hard, you're not good at this, you can never lose weight, etc., 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 what do we think our actions are going to look like? Or how do you think we're going to proceed in terms of confidence, in terms of feeling capable? So it's really imperative that first and foremost, we are aware of our mindset. Secondly, when it comes to our mindset, with it being March and April, with May, June, July coming shortly, and obviously I'm referencing this from the perspective of living in New Jersey, so please, you can realign and adjust based on your region and where you live. We have to be realistic about what it means to prioritize healthful habits in a way that is sustainable and that avoids harm. And I think that this is really the fulcrum of all of this, because if we go into this new change after we've, explored our mindset and really understood, okay, what is it that I want out of this? What are my thoughts telling me? What have my past behaviors looked like, and so forth? When we really go about it in a way that is realistic, I think we can all agree that losing a significant amount of weight in just a couple weeks is not realistic, nor is it healthy. We can all agree that restricting or putting ourselves in a space of starvation or, engaging in intensive exercise is not realistic for whole body health. It's not realistic in terms of getting the results that we want. It's not realistic in terms of sustainability. It is just simply not realistic. And I think in the moment, there can be this level of desperation or this level of, I don't care what I have to do, but I got to do it in order to make this happen. And I want to be with you in that thought. I want to be with you in that energy, because I can understand, especially being in that position once where I really just wanted so badly to achieve a certain physique and to look a certain way. And if we are going to employ these extreme efforts in order to do that, we are compromising our mental health and potentially our physical health as a result of it. So one of the biggest suggestions that I can make for you and to you is to relinquish this quick and intensive approach that we are so tempted to adopt. There's so much temptation there to say, I'm just going to go hard, right? Go hard, watch what I eat, cut out this, cut out that, hit the gym every day, hours and hours of workouts. There is that temptation, and it's a very real temptation. So I'm not trying to discredit that. I'm not trying to say that that's not a very real experience for so many people. However, you are not going to get to where you want to be. You're not going to see it as a long-term lifestyle. And you're probably not going to feel that good while doing it if you decide to go about it in that way. And I'm just being real with you here, okay? I'm being real from personal experience. I'm being real from what I've heard from other people. I'm being real from the perspective of seeing what that looks like and just being able to extract that, yeah, that seems pretty miserable. That seems pretty terrible. And so that would be my second suggestion here, is be realistic about what makes the most sense from the lens of your health. What makes the most sense from the lens of preservation of your physical health and your mental health? And more likely than not, that does not include caloric restriction, that does not include deprivation, that does not include starvation, that does not include intensive exercise or hours and hours of cardio. It doesn't include any of that. So, Emily, what is it that we do then? Okay, if I've looked at my mindset, I have addressed that, I'm being realistic about, okay, maybe I have to go about this in a different way that doesn't compromise my happiness, that doesn't compromise my physical health, that doesn't compromise, my relationship with myself or impose toxicity in my life and so forth? How is it that I go about this? And the truth of the matter is, you have to be willing to accept that this is a process that is going to be for the long term. As much as you want desperately to be a completely different person in 6 weeks, be a completely different person in 8 weeks, which, don't get me wrong, a lot of progress can be made in just that amount of time. So I'm not saying that you should just give up hope, because it's not worthwhile. What I am saying is looking at what it is that you're trying to achieve from the perspective of the long term. There can absolutely be micro goals in the midst of those longer, larger term goals. I'm not trying to say that we can't still focus on what do I want to achieve in the next 6 weeks? What do I want to achieve in the next 8 weeks, right? That's not to say that that's not a valid goal as well. I firmly believe, and this is a big part of my work with clients, that we look at our goals through a larger term, longer term lens, and then we also break down goals in between. We look at goals in the midst of those larger goals because it gives us direction, it gives us a focus, and we can track our progress along the way. But what I'm not suggesting is that you expect this transformational change, this 180-degree change in the midst of the 6 weeks, in the midst of the 8 weeks, which presents danger, which presents toxicity that can cause harm to the relationship we have with our physical health and the relationship we have with our mental health. Because ultimately, it is unrealistic that you're going to create this, life-altering change in just a matter of a few weeks, unless you're employing habits that are really harmful to our wellness overall. What should be most important to you along this journey as you start to invest in making a change? If you're in a space right now, it's March, April, whatever the case is, and you're feeling this way, is taking it from a health forward perspective. Now, this is very different than what I think diet culture tells us. This is very different from what society tells us. And we are very weight focused. We are very physique focused. We're very conscious of the way that we look. And that oftentimes is not aligned with a health forward perspective. Because when we're focused on our weight, when we're focused on our physique, we can resort to pretty extreme measures, as listed before, that compromise our health, right? So when you think about it, they don't align. We can't necessarily be focused on our health and also be hyper fixated on our weight. So instead of, I need to lose X amount of pounds, or I need to cut this amount of weight, I need to restrict, I need to cut out calories of this amount, whatever the case is, what would the healthiest version of me start doing? Well, maybe the healthiest version of you would start to crowd out as opposed to cut out. I love that phrase. So it's all about adding in lots of real whole foods, lots of protein, especially if weight loss is your goal. Loading up on the color, on lots of the fiber that we need, especially because we're all under consuming fiber. Like I said, protein, healthy fats, maybe some gut-friendly foods. Focusing on adding those in as opposed to, I need to cut out this, I need to cut out that, I need to eat this amount of calories, and so forth. Not only is that a more health-forward approach to achieving the goal that you have, whatever that might look like, but it's also just as important that you are supporting your mindset alongside these behavioral changes that you're making. And you can already feel the energy that comes along with that mentality of cut out this, none of this. It's like that TikTok sound. I forget what it is. It's no sleep, next club, another club. Whatever that TikTok sound is, right? That's what I'm thinking of. Instead, it's what can I add in, right? Like, what is it that I'm not eating enough of that I can add in that's not only going to help me achieve the goal that I have, but it's also going to make my health 100 times better, both physical and mental health. So that is one way of looking at it, right? Especially when it comes to the nutrition piece. It's focusing on what can I add in as opposed to that restrictive mentality, which is oftentimes what we see from a diet perspective, oftentimes what we see from a weight loss perspective, is to cut out, cut out, cut out. And what we know about human nature is if we're cutting out foods, if we're saying, no, I can't have this, no, I can't have that, human nature automatically, innately is going to want that thing more. I've spoke on this before. The more that you try to avoid the ice cream, the pie, the cake, the cookie, the this, the that, right? The more you're going to think about it, the more you're going to want it, the more you're going to fixate on it and ruminate on it. And then that probably heightens your likelihood of binging on it at one point or another, because you've restricted it, restricted it. I've done it. I've all week long. I've avoided it. And now it's the weekend and you have it right in front of you and, all bets are off. Okay, so crowd out as opposed to cut out is my very first suggestion in order to be more successful in achieving feeling better come the summer months. I also think one of the more realistic ways of going about our nutrition in this space is to create a nutritional plan for yourself that you can see yourself maintaining even beyond those 6 weeks, those 8 weeks. Because I think a lot of times we put ourselves on these regimented plans where we're calorie counting, or we can only eat this, or I'm eating chicken and broccoli every meal and so forth. And I think from that, there might be, what feels like sustainability in the midst of those 6 to 8 weeks. Like, yeah, I could do this. I could stick to this for 6 to 8 weeks. But then what happens after the fact? What happens once you're done with those 6 to 8 weeks? Then you're kind of left with your own devices to figure out, okay, well, how do I maintain this? How do I continue to uphold the goals that I have? How do I, continue to nourish myself in a way that remains in alignment with my goals? How do I do all these things if I'm no longer following the plan, the regimented plan that I had made for those 6 weeks? What do I do? So a suggestion I would make there would be to keep the long term in mind, as opposed to I'm sticking to this for 6 weeks, as opposed to I'm sticking to this for 8 weeks. How can I adjust my already existing nutritional habits so that I can make better choices? I can move closer to the goals that I have for myself. I can feel good. And I can also see myself continuing to live this way far beyond these next 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is. Okay. That would be my almost primary suggestion, because I think a lot of times, and this comes up with clients, if you're following some sort of diet plan, you follow it for 6 weeks and then you're done. And then you're like, well, what do I do now? It's the same thing with me, with clients, where it's like, if I tell you, this is what you need to be eating every single day and don't veer from this path. Not only is that very restrictive, it promotes rigidity. It can be unhealthy. Even if it's healthy foods, it can promote unhealthiness, right? It leaves you very powerless. It leaves you without the authority in your health when we do part ways and you're like, well, Emily told me what to eat the past 6 weeks and now I have no idea what to do. So my suggestion for you would be, if you want to start to improve your nutrition and you have a 6 week or 8 week goal, be sure that you're focusing on what are the habits that I need to build in order to see this sustained for the long term. Now, small aside here, this is a big part of what I will be teaching you in my upcoming workshop. And if you are listening to this episode beyond April 9th, 2024, then please feel free to reach out and I can send you the replay of the workshop. I'm happy to do that for you. But I will be teaching you a lot about this come that workshop in order for you to feel empowered. You can take authority in your own health, in your own wellness, well beyond the 6 to 8 week window, so that you're not feeling like, okay, well, now what, right? What do I do? So now when it comes to exercise, I really think that this takes a lot of grace and patience, because I know that feeling where you're like, I just want to go hard in the gym and sweat. I mean, I remember this is before Apple Watches. Okay, so this is like prehistoric era. Just kidding. Even I don't really know how I feel about Apple Watches actually tracking your calorie metric. But anyways, I would focus on what the machine would say in terms of calorie burn. I would, put my textbooks up on the elliptical and I would read and study. And I will say, this is actually a fun fact about me. Is it a fun fact? I don't know. During my undergrad, when I was studying psychology, my statistics class was one of the most challenging freaking classes. I swear to God, it was so hard. Do I use any of it now? No. Did I even use any of it in my mental health background? No, of course not. But I had to take the class. So I would put my statistic notes up on the treadmill at the gym, okay? And I would take pages and pages and pages of notes. And I would run. I would run, probably 4 miles with instrumental music on because I couldn't focus on anything while I was reading. And I would just read my notes, running, read. Turn the pages, read. I'm a psychopath. Everyone probably at the gym was like, what the is this girl doing? Is she okay? But when I say I was the top performing student in this class, I'm telling you, my class was really small. It was probably like 7 of us, all girls, male professor. He was a younger guy, a little bit obnoxious. I'll just say that, a little bit arrogant, but I swear to God, I would get 105, 110, because he'd always give extra credit. I swear by this method. I almost wish I was still in school so I could do that again because I would kill it. I literally would go. I had class on Mondays. I would go to the gym beforehand, run my heart out, read all my notes over and over again, shower at the gym, go to class, nail my exams. Like, never missed. I don't know. Who knows? I don't even know what my point is here. What was my point here? My point here, I guess, was there's this pattern and this urgency to sweat as much as I could, to burn as many calories as I could. And ultimately, that was doing my body a disservice because you're not actually making progress by doing that. You're simply inducing your body into a state of stress. And I say this because there was not a opportunity for my body to rest. There was not the opportunity for my body to recover because I was hitting it hard every single day. And maybe, this maybe wasn't as relevant, I would say, to maybe this topic of like Marches and Aprils. I'm just simply giving an example of certain things that I used to do But this is essentially what I would do in March and April, and maybe I would be outside running or I'd be at the gym. But I would go hard every single day because I really truly thought that was the most effective way to get to where I wanted to be. And there's 2 things I want to mention here. First things first, you're putting yourself at risk of burnout, of injury. You are putting yourself in a stressed out spot, which we know is not good for weight loss. It's not good for any part of our health, okay? High intensity over and over and over again without rest, really toxic to our hormones, to our gut health, and so forth. But not only that, I was also forgetting the fact that muscle mass is really the key to seeing sustained change. Muscle mass is the key indicator of longevity. It is one of the most valuable things that we can prioritize when it comes to our health and wellness throughout our entire lifetime. Even if you're 60 years old and you start to resistance train, you start to build muscle mass at that age, you are going to see a significant improvement in your life expectancy, in your health, and so forth, just by investing in that process then. So that was the missing piece of this whole process. Was I was so fixated on cardio, which at the time, I'm 5'8". I didn't need to lose all of this excess weight, right? I've never needed to really lose excess amounts of weight. Did I want to tone? Yes, but was I doing it in a way that was effective? Absolutely not, right? So my suggestion for you when it comes to addressing your relationship with movement in the 6 to 8 weeks, meet yourself where you are and take an inch. If you try to overstep, you try to skip a few steps, if you try to start at step 50 and you're at step 1, you will do more harm to your body than good, okay? You will put yourself at risk for injury and so forth. Secondly, focus on muscle development. Focus on balanced movement. This is also something that we're going to talk about in the workshop, is focusing on what it means to develop a balanced relationship with movement, with exercise, and so forth. Okay. Super, super important. And by taking the pressure off of doing all of this high intensity, all of this, really extreme, high impact movement, you're not only helping your body and giving your body the space to recover, you're also lessening the risk of injury. You are preventing yourself from being in this space of extreme stress, which comes along with that. And by prioritizing muscle development with strength training, resistance training, doing low impact, even yoga and restorative work. I've recently gotten into hot Pilates and I'm obsessed with it. I've been doing it now every week. I love it. Really giving yourself the chance to diversify not only is going to allow sustainability in your relationship with movement, but you're also likely going to see better results, more sustained results, even in the midst of those 6 to 8 weeks, than if you were to try to push it hard, induce this state of stress, and inhibit your body's ability to either lose weight or to function the way that it should. You're likely going to do more harm to your body than good, even though I know you have good intentions. So there are so many other suggestions that I can make here, and I think this topic warrants a part 2 simply because of the fact that it's so prominent, it's so relevant, it's so common. But what I would suggest, if you're interested in learning more or you feel like this resonates with you, please feel free to register for my workshop on Tuesday, April 9th, 6 o'clock over Zoom, Eastern Time. It is free. It's going to be about 60 to 90 minutes. I am going to leave some time for some questions. If you have questions, I want to be able to answer and support you in them. And I really clearly go through habits and routines, how to establish them, and then I expand on all of these topics and more in order for you to create sustainability in your wellness routines, not only for the next 6 to 8 weeks, right? We're very much in the spring season now. Summer is near. I want you to feel like you have security in that and stability, but also habits and routines that you can foresee yourself sticking to for months and years to come. And even so far as to say that you're able to stick to them so that come next March and April, those habits and routines are still there. They're concrete. They're part of your lifestyle. They're, built into the foundation of your day and who you are. And you won't even need to have those concerns, that stress, that anxiety, because you've already established them so beautifully into your life. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. Truly means the world to me. This is a topic that means so much to me, and I'm so grateful that I went through it so I can now support you in addressing these issues for yourself and hopefully finding some clarity, finding some peace so that these stressors, this anxiety, this dread that comes along with this time of year isn't so heavy for you. And I hope that you'll tune into my workshop next week. If you have any questions, please let me know. The details are in the show notes. But until next time, I thank you for coming to my table and